I want to encourage you to subscribe to Saints Now by Chat Sports today, so that way you don't miss out on our awesome live draft coverage. We're going to be live all 3 days of the 2025 NFL Draft, so be sure to subscribe for free coverage. We're going to have the picks before the TV announces them. We're going to be giving you awesome coverage from a Saints perspective by Saints fans for Saints fans. It's going to be entertaining, it's going to be engaging, and it's going to be an awesome time. So be sure to subscribe, and we're also very close to our next milestone of 43,200. So help your boy out, because we're trying to chip away to the road to 50K. Now, did you know that the New Orleans Saints are the betting favorites to draft top quarterback prospect Shedeur Sanders? FanDuel, they released their updated odds for the top teams to draft Shedeur Sanders, and the black and gold leads the charge right here. So we're going to talk about that in this video. But of course, we're also going to dive into this new report that the Saints were, quote, impressed with Jaylen Milroe. So be sure to stick around here for a little bit, but let's kick it back to Shedeur. Now, like I said, you may have seen this in a video earlier today. We put out a video this morning about Shedeur Sanders and the possibility of the Saints drafting him and Deion Sanders wanting him to be a Saint. So go check it out here at the end of this. But really quick, the Saints lead the charge of the odds to draft Shedeur Sanders at plus 270. The Giants are at plus 370. The Steelers at plus 600. The Browns and the Jets are both at plus 700. And the Rams are at 1,100. So these are the updated odds from FanDuel. And, I think that this doesn't mean nothing. I don't think that this is insignificant. I think that this is something definitely to monitor and keep an eye out on. And because the Saints have been skyrocketing up the odds to draft Shedeur. And I do think that New Orleans is a great spot for this guy right here. And honestly, for a great spot for any quarterback. There's a lot of reasons. And in my opinion, the biggest one is that you have the opportunity to sit, learn, develop, and then go out and win when you inevitably take over after Derek Carr's tenure as the Saints quarterback is finished. Now, Brett Coleman of Underdog Football, he had some really good information and really good insight here that I wanted to share, because I totally agree with what he said. Honestly, in the interest of Shedeur having a successful career, he thinks that him going to the Saints is the best option and the best thing for the young quarterback, at least out of the teams in the top 10. And they do have their franchise left tackle in Talese Fuaga. They have their wide receiver one in Chris Olave. They have their head coach in Kellen Moore, who was a very successful college quarterback, who has skyrocketed and climbed the coaching rankings in his short tenure as an NFL coach. So just like Brett Coleman pointed out, I believe he could work in New Orleans. And obviously, he mentioned that you have your franchise left tackle, you have your wide receiver one, but I don't think that we're doing enough due diligence for the New Orleans Saints in terms of the offensive weapons available. Now, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, those are your top three wide receivers, but you also have guys like Bub Means, Kevin Austin Jr., and Mason Tipton on the roster. Alvin Kamara is one of the most dynamic football players with the ball in his hands. Kendra Miller, if he can stay healthy, he's still a good running back that I do have faith in, but I do think the Saints need to add another running back in the draft this year because it's such a deep and talented class. You got two solid tight ends in Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. And then, of course, you have the Swiss Army knife Taysom Hill, who won't be available early in the season because he's still recovering from a knee and ACL injury that he suffered late in the season last year. However, all things are pointing that Taysom Hill's recovery should be full, it should be okay, and he should return here later this season. Now, I do believe that the New Orleans Saints have a decent foundation, and they have the building blocks there to create a quality team and to build something for the future with Kellen Moore. However, you do definitely need to add talent in the draft. You need to raise the overall talent level because right now you have a solid, okay roster, but you need to make that a great roster because good rosters and okay rosters don't win Super Bowls. Great rosters win Super Bowls. So, of course, there's the argument that you need to build the trenches. Of course, there's the argument that you need to add pass catchers, you need to add weapons. But I do believe that bringing in a first-round talent like Shedeur Sanders makes a lot of sense for the New Orleans Saints. And to be totally honest, I think that the weapons that they have are good. Just give Shedeur another one. The injuries last year were the biggest issue. The coaching on top of that was not great with Dennis Allen leading the charge. But at the end of the day, when Darren Rizzi took over, things were better. And if you were to bring in another nice wide receiver, a big-bodied pass catcher, you add another running back, you potentially look to add a tight end, I think that those are things that will definitely benefit Shedeur Sanders, of course, over the long term as well, because this is not a player that you draft and then in a couple of years you move off of. This is a guy who could be your franchise quarterback who hopefully is here over the next 10, 15 seasons. Now, like I said, injuries were the big issue last year. Shedeur Sanders hopefully will not have to deal with all of that if he is a New Orleans Saint, but if he does have to deal with the injuries, the Saints need to add more depth. They need to add more talent, and they need to raise the overall skill level of the offense because, quite frankly, right now, it's just not good enough. Despite my personal belief that Kellen Moore, being the head coach and this new coaching staff offensively, has improved the offense as a whole. And did you know that Shedeur Sanders holds the all-time record for career completion percentage in college football at a 71.8 career completion percentage? That is absolutely amazing, especially when you consider the facts that he had a horrible offensive line. I believe he was sacked 99 times over the past 2 seasons, but the toughness, the attitude, the winning mindset kept him in the pocket and was the reason he was able to deliver strikes and keep the offense moving for the Colorado Buffaloes. And I can understand that you have Travis Hunter, who's the best college football player as a wide receiver, but you didn't really have a ton of extra depth behind that. You had LaJohntay Wester, who did have a nice season with 931 yards. Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, Draylon Miller, and Marion Miller. Then you kind of start running out of names that you've ever really heard of. And look, I think that that's kind of similar to the Saints, where you have a bad offensive line, or maybe I think it's actually better than what people give it credit for. But then you have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and then it's kind of like a lot of unproven talent, a lot of guys that need to be tapped into in terms of their potential and appealed to by Kellen Moore. So I think that this is a really good situation in New Orleans for Shedeur Sanders. And not to mention, you get to sit behind Derek Carr for a year, and you don't have to put him on the field week 1. You have nothing but time to learn. You have nothing but time to develop over the handful of first few weeks or over the course of the first season. And I think that it is a great situation to have Shedeur Sanders with the New Orleans Saints. Now, let's just have this POV here. The Saints took Shedeur round 1. That's already happened. Who should they select in round 2? I want you to let me know in the comment section. Share your thoughts. Should they go offensive line? Should they go defensive line? Should they go guy to pass catcher? Because we're talking about the Saints already drafting Shedeur Sanders in round 1. What should they do if this happens? Now, coming up next, we're going to get into the report that the New Orleans Saints had a private workout with Jaylen Milroe and that they were, quote, very impressed with the Alabama quarterback. Before we keep this conversation going around Jaylen Milroe, I gotta say thank you so much to the Game Time app for making today's shows possible. And watching sports with your friends is always a blast, but nothing matches the hype of actually being in attendance. So don't miss out on any big moments across sports with the Game Time app. Game Time also doesn't stop at just sporting events. It's the best place to get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, theater, and other live events too. Game Time has last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports, concert, theater, and everything like I already mentioned. But they also have a cool feature called Game Time Picks. It makes last-minute ticket buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. And make sure you check out Super Deals. These tickets are the best value for events, and in the Game Time app, they will highlight those tickets for you so that way you can get the best savings and maximize your experience with the Game Time app. Jazz Fest is here. It's going to be around the corner just here in a few weeks here in April. It's best time of the year. A lot of good music in New Orleans. And, of course, you also have the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are now the #1 team in college baseball. They will be traveling to Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers here at the end of the baseball season. So if you want to see a very high-profile matchup with a lot of impact for the SEC tournament, for Omaha, the road to Omaha, and all that, definitely want to get tickets to this one. Honestly, I might actually have to make a trip out. We might have to go to this one, Lopez. That would be a lot of fun. Or you can even get tickets to Saints games next year. They already got tickets on sale for Falcons at Saints. We don't even have the date or the time, but you can buy tickets to the game, which is absolutely crazy. Like I mentioned, these super deals, they already have super deals available here for this game too. So make sure you check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but once again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So there's a new report out there from Jordan Schultz that dropped here just a couple of hours ago. Alabama quarterback Jaylen Milroe had a private workout with the Saints and the Browns that were described as, quote, impressive. Me doing this impressive is how I feel about Jaylen Milroe. He also met with key members of the Jets and the Steelers offensive staffs prior to his pro day last month. So there you go. The Saints were impressed by Jaylen Milroe. I can tell you right now that I have not been impressed by Jaylen Milroe. I am not a Jaylen Milroe fan. I can understand why people are. I am not a fan of his game. I have seen too many ducks at his pro day. I've seen too many ducks in games. I've seen too many bad throws. I've seen too many bad moments. And quite frankly, I get that Alabama has been kind of a weird story with Nick Saban being gone and all of the things changing in college football, but I'm not a believer in Jaylen Milroe, but let's have the conversation about it because I do think it is a realistic possibility that Milroe is a selection for the New Orleans Saints. In terms of the pros for him, he's an incredibly dynamic runner. I mean, he might be one of the best overall athletes in this entire draft class. He has very, very nice speed and a really good deep ball, and the arm talent is definitely there for the Alabama quarterback. He also doesn't have the best accuracy, so that's something definitely to monitor and definitely that's worth mentioning. But I think with accuracy and processing and all that kind of stuff, these are things that you can develop and change, and especially with Kellen Moore being a former quarterback and having a better offensive staff, I think that these are things that you can iron out with a player like Jaylen Milroe. However, the hand size, the fumbles, the anticipation, all those are issues as well. And in my opinion, I definitely think that he needs to sit at least a year, if not two, to develop because he is not ready by any means to be a quarterback in the National Football League. Let's look at the stats last year, though, for Jaylen Milroe. 64.3 completion percentage, almost 3,000 passing yards. He did have not a lot of great ball protection in the air, 16 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Would love to see that number be drastically different. But in terms of the rushing yards, he averaged 4.3 yards per carry, 726 yards on 168 carries for 20 touchdowns on the ground. And look at his passing stats over the past 4 years. I mean, last year, I know that it's up 10 yards, but in my opinion, I think it was a down year, and I think he reverted a little bit this past season. The average depth of target for Jaylen Milroe in 2024 was 9.9 yards, and he had a 6.8 drop percentage. So, for me, I think that Jaylen Milroe is a fine football player, but I just want to see him develop more, and I want to see him turn into a better player. Like, I cannot sit here and tell you he's ready. I cannot believe that he's ready to be an NFL quarterback. And a big thing that the New Orleans Saints need to do is turn a franchise around. I mean, they need to reset a culture. They need to reset what it means to play Saints football. And quite frankly, Jaylen Milroe, I don't know if he's the guy who can do that. So my big question is, can Jaylen Milroe turn a franchise around? Can he go and be the guy that takes over and is going to lead this team to the promised land over the next 10 years? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And we have a clip of Jaylen Milroe from the Combine. Shout out to the Chat Sports crew for being out there. And he discussed on whether or not he could turn a franchise around and what that means to him. So let's just kick it over to Jaylen.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about opportunity. I'm not someone to try to be a savior. I'm someone to just trying to better a program as a whole. And so it's all about opportunity, and I would love to seize that opportunity as well and grow as a player. The biggest thing as a player is be better than you were the day before and try to strive for greatness. Climbing a mountain ain't easy. But when you get to the top of the mountain, you'll learn so many things when it comes to adversity, when it comes to hardship, things along the way. And so I had all that throughout my journey as a player. And so I'm just looking to lead, looking to grow as a player and be better than I was this past season.
Now, I think Milroe brought up some good points there. It is a lot about opportunity. I mean, obviously being a leader and is about opportunity. You have to take advantage of that opportunity. You have to be given the chance to show what you're capable of. But when you're given that chance, you better damn well take advantage of it. And I do think that his mindset of not trying to be the savior, but trying to improve the program and the franchise as a whole is definitely very different than Shedeur Sanders, who has been on the record saying, if you don't want to change your franchise or your culture, don't pick me. And in my opinion, the Saints, they need to change their culture and they need to change their franchise. Jaylen also went on to say he wants to grow as a player and he wants to be better than you were the day before. And that's what turning a franchise around and being a leader as a quarterback is. So I can appreciate those things. And I also can sit here and say this. I think Kellen Moore could get very, very creative with Jaylen Milroe as an offensive weapon because, let's be honest, the passing ability is, partially a good thing of his game, especially the deep ball. But the running ability is really where he's going to make his money. And funny enough, he's kind of built like a running back. I'm not saying draft him to be a running back, but, if there's anybody who's going to be able to run the ball and throw the ball and kind of be a Taysom Hill-ish 2.0, let's more so call it a 1.9. Maybe Jaylen Milroe? I just have a hard time believing the Saints won't lead the draft without a quarterback. And I do think that it's going to be one of these top guys. It's not going to be Cam Ward. It might be Jackson Dart. It might be Jaylen Milroe. It might be Shedeur Sanders. I believe it's going to be one of those three. And if it's not one of those three, keep an eye out on Quinn Ewers. I think the top three names to keep an eye out on for the New Orleans Saints are Shedeur, Jackson Dart, and Jaylen Milroe. Because I think that Kellen Moore wants an offensive weapon like Jaylen Milroe, like Jackson Dart, like Shedeur Sanders, because none of those guys' games are just one-sided. They are multiple. They are very multifaceted and multi-talented guys that honestly you can build around. And it fits what Kellen Moore wants. It fits the style of what Kellen Moore has been deciding or has been trying to build. I just don't know if I believe in Jaylen Milroe. I'm personally not a fan of it. Maybe you are. So let me know in the comments. What quarterback will the Saints draft? I think they're going to end up with one. I firmly believe the Saints are going to draft a quarterback. So let me know, who's it going to be? And if you want to continue this conversation, I actually put out a video earlier this morning. I'm wearing the same hoodie because it's just so fresh. Check it out. This is the thumbnail. It's actually going to pop up here in just a second. As the end screen rolls, you'll see YouTube recommend it. Just click on it. It'll be right over here somewhere. This is the thumbnail. Deion Sanders wants the New Orleans Saints to draft Shedeur? Click on the video and find out. Saints fans, I appreciate y'all for rocking and rolling with us. Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I'm your host, Trizzy Trace Girouard, for my guy, Nick Lopez. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.